Hey guys, welcome back to Pawpaw Storytime. It is Christmas Eve. I know it's not Sunday, but we're going to do another Storytime tomorrow too. I guess I'm just going to jump right into the readings. We are out in the country just like we were last Christmas Eve. I can't remember if we did it the Christmas Eve before that out here, or I don't remember how long. Anyways, I'm going to take a drink of my flaming rum punch. Just take a second for old Clarence. And then we're going to start on the Little House Collection. And we are at the surprise. And it is... It's almost Christmas time at Plum Creek again. Laura and Mary are working hard on their lessons in the new little house that Pa has built. Then one day there are no lessons, because Ma says that everyone must get dressed in order to go to town that night. Laura and Mary are astonished. They never ever go to town at night, but Ma will tell them only that they must not ask more questions, for it's a Christmas surprise. Hold on just a second here, sure. Get to my last page. Okay. Surprise. That was another mild winter without much snow. It was still grasshopper weather, but chill winds blew and the sky was gray, and the best place for little girls was in the cozy house. Paul was gone outdoors all day. He hauled logs, chopped them into wood for the stove. He followed frozen Plum Creek far upstream where nobody lived and set traps along the banks for muskrat and otter and mink. Every morning, Laura and Mary studied their books and worked sums on the slate. Every afternoon, Ma heard their lessons. They said they were good little scholars, and she was sure that when they went to school again, they would find that they had kept up with their classes. Every Sunday, they went to Sunday school. Laura saw Nellie Olson showing off her fur cape. She remembered what Nellie said about Pa, and she burned hot inside. She knew that hot feeling was wicked. She knew she must forgive Nellie, or she would never be an angel. She thought hard about the pictures of beautiful angels in the big paper-covered Bibles at home. But they wore long white nightgowns. Not one of them wore a fur cape. One happy Sunday was the Sunday when the Reverend Alden came from eastern Minnesota to preach in the Western Church. He preached for a long time. While Laura looked at his soft blue eyes and watched his beard wagging, she hoped he would speak to her after church, and he did. "Here are my little country girls, Mary and Laura," he said. He remembered their names. Laura was wearing her new dress that day. The skirt was long enough and the sleeves were long too. They made her coat sleeves look shorter than ever, but the red braid on the cuffs was pretty. "What a pretty new dress, Laura," said Reverend Alden. Laura almost forgave Nellie Olson that day. Then came Sundays when the Reverend Alden stayed in his own church. And in Sunday school, Nellie Olson turned up her nose at Laura and flounced her shoulder under the fur cape. Hot wickedness boiled up in Laura again. One afternoon, Paul said that there would be no lessons because they must all get ready to go to town that night. Laura and Mary were astonished. "But we never go to town at night," Mary said. "There must be a first time for everything," said Ma. "But why must there be, Ma?" Laura asked. "Why are we going to town at night?" "It's a surprise," said Ma. "Now no more questions. We must all take baths and be our very nicest." In the middle of the week, Ma brought in the wash tub and heated water for Mary's bath, then again for Laura's bath, and again for Carrie's. There had never been such scrubbing and scampering, such a changing to fresh drawers and petticoats, such brushing of shoes and braiding of hair, and tying on of hair ribbons. There had never been such a wondering. Supper was early. After supper, Pa bathed in the bedroom. Laura and Mary put on their new dresses. They knew better than to ask any more questions, but they wondered and whispered together. The wagon box was full of clean hay. Pa put Mary and Laura in it and wrapped blankets around them. She climbed to the seat beside Ma and drove away toward town. The stars were small and frosty in the dark sky, The horses' feet clippity-clopped and the wagon rattled over the hard ground. Paul heard something else. "Whoa," he said, pulling up the reins. Sam and David stopped. There was nothing but vast, dark coldness and stillness pricked by the stars. Then the stillness blossomed into the loveliest sound. Two clear notes sounded and sounded again and again. No one moved. Only Sam and David tinkled their bits together and breathed. Those two notes went on full and loud, soft and low. They seemed to be the stars singing. Too soon, Ma murmured, "We'd better get on, Charles," and the wagon rattled on. Still, though its rattling, Laura could hear those swaying notes. And "Oh, Paul, what is it?" she asked, and Paul said, "It's the new church bell, Laura." It was for this that Paul had worn his old patched boots. The town seemed asleep. The stores were dark, and Paul drove past them. Then Laura exclaimed, "Oh, look at the church. How pretty the church is." The church was full of light. Light spilled out of all its windows and ran into the darkness from the door when it opened to let someone in. Laura almost jumped out from under the blankets before she remembered that she must never stand up in the wagon when the horses were going. Paul drove to the church steps and helped them all out. He told them to go in, but they waited in the cold until he had covered Sam and David with their blankets. Then he came in. They all went to the church together. Laura's mouth fell open and her eyes stretched to look at what she saw. She held Mary's hand tightly and they followed Ma and Paul. They sat down. Then Laura could look with all her might. Standing in front of the crowded benches was a tree. Laura decided it must be a tree. She could see its trunk and its branches, but she had never seen such a tree before. Where leaves would be in the summer, there were clusters and streamers of thin green paper. Thick among them hung little sacks made of pink mosquito bar. Laura was almost sure that she could see candy in them. From the branches hung packages wrapped in colored paper, red packages, pink packages, and yellow packages, all tied with colored string. Silk scarves were draped among them. Red mittens hung by the cord that would go around your neck and keep them from being lost if you were wearing them. A pair of new shoes hung by their heels from a branch. Lavish strings of white popcorn were looped all over it. Under the tree and leaning against it were all kinds of things. Laura saw a crinkly bright washboard, a wooden tub, a churn and a dasher, a sled made of new boards, a shovel, a long-handled pitchfork. Laura was too excited to speak. She squeezed Mary's hand tighter and tighter, and she looked up at Ma, wanting so much to know what that was. Ma smiled down at her and answered, "That is a Christmas tree, girls. Do you think it's pretty?" They could not answer. They nodded while they kept on looking at that wonderful tree. They were hardly even surprised to know that this was Christmas, though they had not expected Christmas yet because there was not enough snow. Just then, Laura saw the most wonderful thing of all. From a far branch of that tree hung a little fur cape and a muff to match. The Reverend Alden was there. He preached about Christmas, but Laura was looking at that tree, and she could not hear what he said. Everyone stood up to sing, and Laura stood up, but she could not sing. Not a sound would come out of her throat. In the whole world, there couldn't be a store so wonderful to look at as that tree. After the singing, Mr. Tower and Mr. Beetle began taking things off of it and reading out names. Mrs. Tower and Miss Beetle brought those things down past the benches and gave them to the person whose name was on them. Everything on that tree was a Christmas present for somebody. When Laura knew that, the lamps and people and voices and even the tree began to whirl. They whirled faster and noisier and more excited. Someone gave her a pink mosquito bar bag. It did have candy in it, and a big popcorn ball. Mary had one too, so did Carrie. Every girl and boy had one. Then Mary had a pair of blue mittens. Then Laura had a red pair. Ma opened a big package, and there was a warm, big, brown and red plaid shawl for her. Paul got a woolly muffler. Then Carrie had a rag doll with a china head. She screamed for joy. Through the laughing and talking and rustling of papers, Mr. Beetle and Mr. Tower went on shouting names. The little fur cape and muff still hung on the tree, and Laura wanted them. She wanted to look at them as long as she could. She wanted to know who got them. They could not be for Nellie Olson, who already had a fur cape. Laura did not expect anything more, but to Mary came a pretty little booklet with Bible pictures in it from Mrs. Tower. Mr. Tower was taking the little fur cape and the muff from the tree, and he read a name, but Laura could not hear it through all the joyful noise. She lost sight of the cape and muff among all the people. They were gone now. Then to Carrie came a cunning little brown spotted white china dog, but Carrie's arms and her eyes were full of her doll, so Laura held and stroked and laughed over the sleek little dog. "Merry Christmas, Laura," Miss Beadle said, and in Laura's hand she put a beautiful little box. It was made of snow-white gleaming china. On its top stood a wee gold-colored teapot and a gold-colored tiny cup in a gold-colored saucer. The top of the box lifted off. Inside was a nice place to keep a breastpin if someday Laura had a breastpin. Ma said it was a jewel box. There had never been such a Christmas as this. It was such a large, rich Christmas, the whole church full of Christmas. There were so many lamps and so many people, so much noise and laughter and so many happinesses in it. Laura felt full and bursting, as if the whole big, rich Christmas were inside her, and her mittens, and her beautiful jewel box with the wee gold cup and saucer and teapot, and her candy, and her popcorn ball. And suddenly someone said, "These are for you, Laura." Miss Tower stood smiling, holding out a little fur cape and muff. "For me?" Laura said. "For me?" Then everything else vanished, while both arms she hugged the soft furs to her. She hugged them tighter and tighter, trying to believe they were really hers, that silky, soft little brown fur cape and the muff. All around her Christmas went on, but Laura knew only the softness of those furs. People were going home. Carrie was standing on the bench while Ma fastened her coat and tied her hood more snugly. Ma was saying, "Thank you so much for the shawl, Brother Alden. It is just what I needed." Pa said, "And I thank you for the muffler. It will feel good when I come to town in the cold." The Reverend Alden sat down on the bench and asked, "And does Mary's coat fit?" Laura had not noticed Mary's coat until then. Mary had on a new dark blue coat. It was long, and its sleeves came down to Mary's wrists. Mary buttoned it up, and it fit. "And how does the little girl like her furs?" The Reverend Alden smiled. He drew Laura between his knees. He laid the fur cape around her shoulders and fastened it at the throat. He put the cord on the muff around her neck, and her hands went inside the silky muff. "There," the Reverend Alden said. "Now my little country girls will be warm when they come to Sunday school." "What do you say, Laura?" Ma asked. But the Reverend Alden said, "There is no need. The way her eyes are shining is enough." Laura could not speak. The golden brown fur cuddled her neck, and she softly hugged her shoulders. Down her front, it hid the threadbare fastenings of her coat. The muff came far up her wrist and hid the shortness of her coat sleeves. "She's a little brown bird with red trimmings," the Reverend Alden said. Then Laura laughed. It was true. Her hair and her coat and her dress and wonderful furs were brown. Her hood and mittens and the braid on her dress were red. "I'll tell my church people back east about our little brown bird. You see, when I told them about our church out here, they said they must send a box for the Christmas tree. They all gave things they had. The little girls who sent you furs and Mary's coat needed larger ones." "Thank you, sir," said Laura. "And please, sir, tell them thank you, too." For when she could speak, her manners were as nice as Mary's. Then they all said good night and Merry Christmas to the Reverend Alden. Mary was so beautiful in her Christmas coat. Carrie was so pretty on Pa's arm. Pa and Ma were smiling so happily, and Laura with all gladness. Mr. and Miss Olson were going home. Mr. Olson's arms were full of things, so were Nellie's and Willie's. So no wickedness boiled up in Laura now. She only felt a little bit of mean gladness. "Merry Christmas, Nellie," Laura said. Nellie stared while Laura walked quietly on, with her hand snuggled deep in the soft muff. Her cape was prettier than Nellie's, and Nellie had no muff. All right, we're going to move right on to the fourth day. Take another little drink of Clarence's Flamin' Rum Punch. And Christmas was coming once again to Plum Creek, but Laura doesn't feel much like celebrating. A terrible blizzard has been roaring around the little house on the banks of Plum Creek for 4 days now. Worst of all, Paul left for town a few hours before the storm began, and he still has not come home. Laura and Mary and Ma are sure that he must have stayed in town, but they are anxiously waiting for him all the same. And it's Christmas Eve. Will Paul make it home safely and in time for Christmas? The fourth day. In the morning, those sounds were gone from the wind. It was blowing with a steady wailing scream, and the house stood still. But the roaring fire in the stove gave hardly any heat. "The cold is worse," Ma said. "Don't try to do the housework properly. Wrap up your shawls and keep Carrie with you close to the stove." Soon after, Ma came back from the stable. The frost on the eastern window glowed faintly yellow. Laura ran to breathe on it and scratch away an ice until she made a peephole. Outdoors, the sun was shining. Ma looked out, then Mary and Laura took turns looking out in the snow blowing in waves over the ground. The sky looked like ice. Even the air looked cold about the fast-blowing flood of snow, and the sunshine that came through the peephole was no warmer than a shadow. Sideways from the peephole, Laura glimpsed something dark. A furry big animal was wading deep in the blowing snow. A bear, she thought. It shambled behind the corner of the house and darkened the front window. "Ma!" she cried. The door opened. The snowy, furry animal came in. Paul's eyes looked out of its face. Paul's voice said, "Have you been good girls while I was gone?" Ma ran up to him. Laura and Mary and Carrie ran, crying and laughing. Ma helped him out of his coat. The fur was full of snow that showered on the floor. Paul let the coat drop too. "Charles, you're frozen," Ma said. "Just about," said Paul, "and I'm hungry as a wolf. Let me sit down by the fire, Carolyn, and feed me." His face was thin, and his eyes large. He sat shivering close to the oven, and he said he was only cold, not frostbitten. Ma quickly warmed up some of the bean broth and gave it to him. "That's good," he said. "That warms a fellow." Ma pulled off his boots, and he put his feet up on the heat of the oven. "Charles, were you?" She stood smiling with her mouth trembling. "Now, Carolyn, don't you ever worry about me. I'm bound to come home to take care of you and the girls." He lifted Carrie to his knee and put an arm around Laura, the other around Mary. "What do you think, Mary?" "I thought you would come," Mary answered. "That's the girl. And you, Laura? I didn't think you were Mr. Fitch telling stories," said Laura, "and I kept wishing hard." "There you are, Carolyn. How could a fellow fail to get home?" Pa asked Ma. "Give me some more of that broth and I'll tell you all about it." They waited while he rested and ate bean broth with bread and drank hot tea. His hair and his beard were wet with snow melting in them. Ma dried them with a towel. He took her hand and drew her down beside him and asked, "Carolyn, do you know what this weather means?" "It means we'll have a bumper crop of wheat next year." "Does it, Charles?" Ma said. "We won't have any grasshoppers till next summer. They said in town that grasshoppers come only when the summers are hot and dry and the winters are mild. We're getting so much snow that we're bound to have fine crops next year." "That's good, Charles." "Well, they were talking about all this at the store, but I knew I ought to start home. Just as I was leaving, Fitch showed me the buffalo coat. He got it cheap from a man who went east on the last train running and had to have money to buy his ticket. Fitch said I could have the coat for $10. $10 is a lot of money, but I'm glad you got the coat, Charles, said Ma. As it turned out, it's lucky I did, though. I didn't know it then, but going to town, the wind went right through me. It was cold enough to freeze the nose off a brass monkey, and it seemed like my old coat didn't even strain the wind. So when Fitch told me to pay him when I sell my trap furs next spring, I put the buffalo coat on over my old one. As soon as I was out on the prairie, I saw the cloud in the northwest, but it was so small and far away that I thought I could beat it home. Pretty soon, I began to run, but I was no more than halfway when the storm struck me. I couldn't see my hand before my face. It would be all right if these blizzard winds didn't come from all directions at once. I don't know how they do it. When a storm comes from the northwest, a man ought to be able to go straight north by keeping the wind on his left cheek. But a fellow can't do anything like that in a blizzard. Still, it seemed I ought to be able to walk straight ahead even if I couldn't see or tell directions. So I kept on walking, straight ahead. I thought, till I knew I was lost. I had come a good 2 miles without getting to the creek and had no idea which way to turn. The only thing to do was to keep on going. I had to walk till the storm quit. If I stopped, I'd freeze. So I set myself to outwalk the storm. I walked and I walked. I could not see any more than if I had been stone blind. I could hear nothing but the wind. I kept on walking in that white blur. I don't know if you noticed, there seems to be voices howling and things screaming overhead in a blizzard. Yes, Pa, I heard them, Laura said. So did I, said Mary, and Ma nodded. And balls of fire, said Laura. Balls of fire? Pa asked. That will keep, Laura, said Ma. Go on, Charles, what did you do? I kept on walking. I walked till the white blur turned gray and then black, and I knew it was night. I figured I'd been walking 4 hours, and these blizzards last 3 days and nights, but I kept on walking. Pa stopped, and Ma said, I had the lamp burning in the window for you. I didn't see it, said Pa. I kept straining my eyes to see something, but all I saw was the dark. Then of a sudden, everything gave way under me, and I went straight down. Must have been 10 feet. It seemed farther. I had no idea what had happened or where I was, but I was out of the wind, and the blizzard was yelling and shrieking overhead, but the air was fairly still where I was. I felt around me. There was snow banked up as high as I could reach on 3 sides of me, and the other side was a kind of wall of bare ground, sloping back at the bottom. It didn't take me too long to figure that I'd walked off the bank at some gully somewhere on the prairie. I crawled back under the bank, and there I was with solid ground at my back, overhead, snug as a bear in a den. I didn't believe I would freeze there, out of the wind, and with the buffalo coat, I kept warmth in my body, so I curled up in it and went to sleep, being pretty tired. I was glad I had that coat and a good warm cap with ear laps, and that extra pair of thick socks, Carolyn. When I woke up, I could hear the blizzard but faintly. There was solid snow in front of me and coated over with ice where my breath had melted it. The blizzard had filled up the hole that I had made when I fell. Now there must have been 6 feet of snow over me, but the air was good, and I moved my arms and legs and fingers and toes and felt my nose and ears to make sure I was not freezing. I could still hear the storm, so I went to sleep again. How long had it been, Carolyn? 3 days and nights, said Ma. This is the 4th day. Then Pa asked Mary and Laura, do you know what day it is? Is it Sunday? Mary guessed. It's the day before Christmas, said Ma. Laura and Mary had forgotten all about Christmas. Laura asked, did you sleep all that time, Pa? No, I kept on sleeping and waking up hungry and sleeping some more until I woke up just about starved. I was bringing home some oyster crackers for Christmas. They were in a pocket in the buffalo coat. I took a handful of those crackers out of the paper bag and ate them. I fell out in the snow and took a handful, and I ate that for a drink. Then all I could do was lie there and wait for the storm to stop. I tell you, Carolyn, it was mighty hard to do that, thinking of you and the girls, and knowing you would go out in the blizzard to do your chores, but I knew I could not get home till the blizzard stopped. So I waited a long time till I was so hungry again that I ate all the rest of the oyster crackers. They were no bigger than the end of my thumb. One of them wasn't half a mouthful. The whole half pound of them wasn't very filling. Then I went on waiting, sleeping some. I guessed it was night again. Whenever I woke, I listened closely and could hear the dim sound of the blizzard. I could tell by the sound that the snow was getting thicker over me, but the air was still good in my den. The heat of my blood was keeping me from freezing. I tried to sleep all I could, but I was so hungry that I kept waking up. Finally, I was too hungry to sleep at all. Girls, I was bound and determined I would not do it, but after some time, I did. I took the paper bag out of the inside of my pocket of my old coat, and I ate every bit of the Christmas candy. I'm sorry. Laura hugged him from one side, and Mary hugged him from the other. They hugged him hard, and Laura said, "Oh, Paul, I'm so glad you did." "So am I, Paul, so am I," said Mary, and they were truly glad. "Well," Paul said, "we'll have a big wheat crop next year, and you girls won't have to wait till Christmas for candy." "Was it good, Paul?" Laura asked. "Did you feel better after you ate it?" "It was very good. I felt much better. I went right to sleep and must have slept most of yesterday and last night. Suddenly I sat up wide awake and could not hear a sound. Now I was buried so deep in snow that I couldn't hear the blizzard or had it stopped. I listened hard. It was so still that I could hear the silence. Girls, I began digging on that snow like a badger. I wasn't slowing up digging out of that den. I came scrambling through the top of the snowbank, and where do you suppose I was? I was on the bank of Plum Creek, just above the place where we set the first trap, Laura." "Why, I can see that place from my window," said Laura. "Yes, and I can see this house," said Paul. "All that long, terrible time I had been so near." The lamp in the window had not been able to shine into the blizzard at all, or he would have seen its light. "My legs were so stiff and cramped that I could hardly stand on them, but I saw this house and started for home just as fast as I could go, and here I am." He finished, hugging Laura and Mary. Then he went to the big buffalo coat, and he took out one of those pockets, a flat, square-edged can of bright tin. He asked, "What do you think I have brought you for Christmas dinner?" They could not guess. "Oysters," said Paul. "Nice, fresh oysters. They were frozen solid. I got them, and they were frozen solid yet. Better put them in the lean-to, Carolyn, so they will stay that way till tomorrow." Laura touched the can. It was cold as ice. "I ate up the oyster crackers, and I ate up the Christmas candy, but by jinks, I brought the oysters home." And that's going to leave us on the last story for next week, called Christmas Eve. So now we're going to jump right into the second third of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I think that we were somewhere right after his heart was 2 sizes too small. And then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks. On a ramshackle sleigh, he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up," and the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square. "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fists. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue. Where the little Who stockings all hung in a row, these stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. He stuffed them in bags, then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash, while that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied, there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head. He got her a drink, and she went to her bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went up the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for the fire. Then he went up that chimney himself, that old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And that's where we're going to stop that one. Till tomorrow, we'll finish up both of those. We got a bonus story. Probably a couple guest readers tomorrow night. Christmas Day evening. And that's going to do it, guys. Santa Claus is coming tonight. Just make sure that you're good. Make sure you're asleep. Close your eyes. And wake up tomorrow morning. And I'll get to see some of you guys tomorrow while we're out driving around and seeing everybody. I love you guys very much. Merry Christmas. I'm proud of you guys for being exactly who you're supposed to be, and you're the only one that gets to decide that. And remember that our minds, just like our books, work better when they're open. See you guys tomorrow. Love you.